Next Gen Werewolf, the American Werewolf in London, which I think has one of the best special effects.
Oh yeah.
All time for a werewolf.
Sure.
Besides the first one.
Gene Hackers are great special effect.
But it's incredible if you haven't seen that moment.
Yeah, I mean,
it is
they had a $20 million budget,
that
which
puppet
was a lot.
was that transformation is so great. I've watched it many times. I've obviously spent some time on
Sure,
this
absolutely.
transformation because it's really impressive. If you haven't watched that transformation and like the amount of work that went into building that puppet and then the way each part of it is exposed, it's super impressive, and it's shot so well.
Who has not seen American Werewolf in London? Raise your hand. Explain it to them.
I'm very excited about it. It's neat to think about that moment of how cool that was and how innovative it was at the time, because there weren't very many puppets that they had done that sort of work with to get that.
It was a game changer.
Yeah.
Total game changer. The only thing I gotta get, because right after that is when The Howling came out.
Mm-hmm.
No, that one came out first.
Did it really?
Yeah.
I didn't really.
Get it right.
I stand corrected. See, I'm only good with the old stuff.
Yeah, sorry.
But
That
I
one's
noticed
fresh.
that the only, and I love The Howling, but the only thing that was bad about their transformation was you could hear the machine, the air compressor. If you listen close enough, you can hear it in the background.
Werewolf had gas.
The werewolf.
Yeah. It was funny, a friend of mine, anybody ever heard of the magazine Video Watchdog? Tim Lucas, he gets on, and he was very impressed, like you were, about the werewolf's creation on his stuff, but he was not happy with the final werewolf, which kind of looked like a bear in a way. In his eyes, it was big, and it was, you could tell that the transformation was superb, but then when they got to the final thing, it's sort of like, well, what are we going to do? And it was really kind of almost last minute they put this werewolf together. And so Tim Lucas goes up on this board, and he's talking about, I'm just not as big a fan of the film as some people are, because the final werewolf looks like they threw a rug over a stunt man or something like that. And Rick Baker writes back, he goes, I'm sorry I disappointed you. Tim usually has no problem, writing something. He's like, I think I'm just going to leave that one alone.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were both, it was funny too, because Rob Bottin and Rick Baker kind of were neck and neck. I don't know if you would say they were competitive, but the stuff in The Howling was already getting noticed, and Rick knew how to do some of it, and they knew each other, and so you had two werewolf films come out where the roller coaster ride was watching that transformation. And but the difference was Rob Bottin had $1 million to work with, and Rick Baker, the budget of American Werewolf was $20 million. Doesn't sound like anything nowadays, but $20 million
That was a lot.
back in the '80s was a huge amount of money, and it shows up on the screen.
Well, keep
because
in mind, in 1979, they made Star Trek the motion picture from 44.
Yeah.
So that's like half of their budget in a werewolf movie.
But even when the werewolf is transforming, I'm one of those people that's analyzing it while it's happening. Okay, so the hair is coming out of the follicles like that. So when it was already out and they pulled it in and then shot it in reverse and all that kind of stuff. It was absolutely amazing. And but it also had that bizarre. Parents came home and I was watching on HBO. Parents go, "What are you watching?" And a little girl sitting in front of the Muppets on the TV set. Nazi monsters kick over the door. What the hell is that?
But
It's a comedy, Mom.
Baker had started on The Howling.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And American Werewolf was kind of back and forth when it's ready to shoot, not ready to shoot.
Right.
But he had agreed to do American Werewolf. So when Howling came up and then they said, okay, now we're going to make it, he had to honor his original agreement with Landis.
Oh, okay.
Which meant he
It's
had to hand it
contractual.
over. But he
Sure.
had already developed some of the stuff.
Yeah.
So
And you
he
even
had to
see
take what he had already taken and then move
Yeah.
forward with it from there.
And you see him go even further, like later when Bottin was like The Thing,
Mm.
how like the whole movie is like. It's funny how many young people love that movie, whereas a lot of the presto changeo effects the kids don't get. But that movie has grown over the years. Just the level of. I remember I saw it the week it came out. I told everybody while I was running down the street, "You gotta go watch The Thing. You gotta go watch The Thing." Around the stand there, "You gotta go watch The Thing." He's like, "Get away from me, man!" And and yet it fell flat. It died at the theater, and I said, this movie's going to be considered a classic one day.
E.T. killed it. No
E.T.
one
killed
wanted
it.
a horrible ending. They wanted happy.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That was one of the things. I mean, it was it was one of the '82, the greatest summer of all time for actually the greatest year if you've taken the other ones coming in and cat people and all that sort of stuff. But it was tough to do that, and it came out near the end, and it was rough. It was rough, you know. But anyway, back to werewolves. So you, werewolves.
Yeah, I might have to give you two.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. Well, the very first werewolf movie I saw, and it's still probably one of my all-time favorites just because of the fact it was the first that I saw, was really not so much a horror film as it was a science fiction. And it was called The Werewolf. And I think it was 1957.
Don McGowan.
Don McGowan, that's right, yeah. The big Don McGowan playing the big sheriff.
That was that was like our second podcast, wasn't it?
Yeah, well,
Second or
actually,
third,
it
so
was.
if you want to listen to it now,
Believe it or not, it was our second podcast, so ignore the quality of the podcast, I mean, the technical quality, because we were still working the bugs out, it's a little noisy. But yeah, that was the one that, because it was probably the fourth or fifth monster movie I ever saw. And so that's where I learned I technically learned what a werewolf was from the daughter of Dr. Jekyll, because even though Dr. Jekyll had nothing to do with werewolves, which totally disappointed me when I read the book years later, because I always thought it was, I sort of got an idea of lycanthropy and stuff, and then this movie really brought it out. And it had a couple of very memorable scenes. One that, and I think anyone's ever seen it probably know where I'm going with this. One where he wakes up after killing someone in a small town, and he doesn't have any shoes on, and we're in the middle of the damn winter, and he's having to run through the snow, following these wolf tracks back to find out where he ditched his shoes. And that's, anybody who's ever grown up north, you can relate to that, man. It's like, whoa, there's no way I could have done that. And then the other scene is where these two mad scientists who have, they weave the story of the threat of nuclear war, which works into every 1950s horror film, no matter what it is. They were trying to create a mutant-type human race that can survive a nuclear holocaust and outlive everybody, and they were going to be one of them and run the world. As crazy as it sounds, people thought that way back then. They take this poor guy who was in a car accident, experiment on him, and he ends up turning into this werewolf whenever he gets upset. Plus the fact he has amnesia from the car accident, so he's getting pissed off a lot trying to figure out what's going on. They show up in this town to kill him, and they sneak, and they got him in a jail cell because they do realize now he's a werewolf. And as they kill him, it's one of the most incredible scenes, at least it was for me as a kid, still is a very effective scene where they go to give him this injection and they roll him over. He's not the guy, he's the werewolf, and they are stuck in the cell with him. And it's what they don't show. This is where I really learned that you don't have to see what's going on. What they did with the shadows and the lighting and the sound design on that scene with the one guy getting killed and the other guy, you figure out he must be frozen with fear, and the werewolf turns his attention to him, and I can't even imitate it, the guttural, it still makes my skin crawl, but as a kid, I'm like, this is great! I mean, it's just so effective. But then about a year later, Monster movie Matinee ran The Wolfman, and that will always have a very special place with me, and I still consider it one of the finest werewolf movies ever made. Just on atmosphere alone and the acting ability of Lon Chaney Jr., who I think is maybe the most sympathetic werewolf character I've seen in any movie, past and present. If a role was ever made for a particular actor, that was the role that was made for him. And I don't think it would have ever happened if it hadn't been for Mice and Men, because they got to see him play Lenny, and people realized, this guy can act. I mean, he really isn't that bad of an actor, and I think he's become more appreciated over the years. Is that maybe stop comparing him to his father. In his own right, he was a damn good actor. And that movie, it was about 15 or 16, there was a 15 or 16 year gap in there where I hadn't seen it. And when I went back and wanted to watch it again and just forgotten how beautifully made that film is. And what a terrific story. And Bela Lugosi, who's a favorite of mine, it was very good in that. Maurice Open Sky. I mean, there's Claude Rains. I mean, there's just no weakness anywhere. Yeah, even Ralph Bellamy's pretty decent.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, so we're doing pretty good here. So that it was also special because I got heavily into making monster movies, like probably some of us did. I made every Aurora film or every Aurora model that came out. Some of those Revell scene models that came out. And anything that had monsters or whatever, and one of my pride and joys was a working guillotine model that came out, I think it was around 1967, 68. You could actually literally cut the guy's head off. I really loved that. I was trying to figure out a way that I could get tubes of fake blood in there and things, but I couldn't quite pull that off. But the very first monster model I ever put together was the Wolfman. That Wolfman.
Now, your thoughts on Werewolf of London, where Henry Hull said no to Jack Pierce's makeup that Lon Chaney got to use in
That's
41.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we have Henry Hull's, I guess, not only just the makeup here to thank for the extra yak.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I didn't see Werewolf of London for the first time until probably 2 or 3 years after I saw the Wolf.
I love
So,
that movie.
there's still
That's
elements
like
of
one
that
my
movie.
2 or 3 favorite
I
werewolf
think,
movies, Werewolf of London.
I think the transition scene where he's walking by the columns,
Yeah.
and
Gotta
it's
grab
still
it in
one
his
of the best. It's an incredible scene.
And you mentioned sympathetic werewolf. You mentioned Bela Lugosi. Return of the Vampire. We've got a secondary character
Yep.
who's a good guy, but he's a werewolf.
Yep.
Right.
And so
Andreas.
which I thought was a nice take, kind of on the Lon Chaney look, but a
Yeah.
little different, original.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, it was the best werewolf movie ever made. Easily was Werewolf of Woodstock. The guy hates the fact that Woodstock was just down the road a few years earlier. It's on incredibly beautiful HD videotape from '74. It's the lead cop from the Mod Squad, and he goes running down. He's gonna tear what's left of the platform and everything where they played at Woodstock down. He's like, and there's a lightning storm, and what does he do? He grabs one wire and another one while he's tearing. The lightning hits him, and this is the incredible scientific point about this, and I think it's the best reason for a transformation. The lightning turns him into a werewolf.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a perfect,
The
and then I get the
science
whole
flawless.
change. Well, it's almost like that one. And so he's there, and then he's aware, and the rest of it is them running up the cop cars, chasing this guy up and down the hill in the middle of the day. By the way, it almost reminds me of the ending of like when you're watching the ending credits of Dukes of Hazzard or something, or does anybody, or and a little bunch of like a sister films. Like, does anybody remember The Thing with Two Heads, where at the end it's like a stunt man with an extra head and cop cars chasing him up and down, sort of would be a good double bill with Live and Let Die.
Yeah.
But, by the way, this is a complete aside, but I don't care. I'm taking over.
This is classic.
Do you guys, how many know about the scene in Jaws where Richard Dreyfuss cuts open the shark? Everybody's seen it, everybody knows it, and he's throwing stuff. There's a head of a fish, and here's something else, and license plate. Who knows about the license plate? You know the story behind the license plate? Read the license plate if you get a chance. Louisiana, Sportsman's Paradise, 007, 70 to 72, 73. It's Spielberg wanted to do a James Bond film, so in Jaws he did a Live and Let Die license plate. And I didn't know it. My girlfriend had gotten it, and she put it next to her all-important picture signed of Meatloaf. And I'm walking. Meatloaf. So I'm walking by, and all of a sudden out of the corner, I'm like, 007, huh? What? Dagobah? And I start looking at all the little bits and pieces of it. This is a goddamn Live and Let Die license plate. So I go up online, and sure enough, it was a gag that Spielberg had put in there. But anyway, what's that have to do with werewolves? Nothing. But back to Werewolf of Woodstock. I hated when a werewolf I hated when a werewolf just came out of just nothing having to do with a wolf or a werewolf or anything else. I hated that.
Yeah.
The
Mike
end.
hates it too, because
Yeah.
you're telling this whole story and you're so animated, and Mike is.
He does get very excited when I get very excited.
And we know that the one movie that's better than Werewolf of Woodstock is the one that we're showing as our first episode in the new season of Nightmare Theater, Werewolf of
Washington.
Well, what makes that so great?
Which should also
It's
be
an audio play.
What makes it so great is you can't see anything the whole damn movie because they didn't expose it.
There's no light.
It's just basically black figures on
But there
black
are some great,
backgrounds.
great scenes. Dean Stockwell really hammers it up in that thing.
Sure.
He's fantastic.
That's only he can do.
But
I-
the movie itself is.
I moved in with Linda. Yes, we're not married. We live in sin.
Yeah.
But I moved
Yeah,
in. I moved in, and I'm looking at her movie collection, and I'm like, what can I move over to mine? And I go, oh my God, werewolves on wheels. Grab it. I put it over. She sees it. She goes, yeah, go ahead and take it. Yeah, go ahead.
It's
And a
classic.
couple of months go by, and I play it, and it's like motorcycles, 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 motorcycles. I'm looking at the counter on the Blu-ray player, the DVD player. 1.5 minutes left in the film, and then werewolf.
That's right.
And at the end, and I'm like, holy crap!
It was a budget thing. It was a budget thing.
I don't care what it was. It was a crap thing. is
No,
what it was.
they had enough money to have one scene with a werewolf, and that's all
Yeah,
they could
that's it.
But
afford.
once you make the mask, what difference does it make?
Look, they had a cool ass poster.
That's
No,
right, they
you
did.
Make some
Yeah.
mouse and go-go's crack. You get your hand down. What do you want?
What about the snake dance in that movie, though?
That was brilliant.
That's worth the process.
Yes, it was brilliant.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
You're right.
You don't have to wait an hour for that.
Turn.
You
After
can
that,
Well-
who cares about the werewolf?
He already took mine.
Oh, he did?
No. I saw the werewolf first.
Mhm.
Because I got
I think I might have
introduced
seen that
through
first,
to monster movies, not through TV, but through 8mm.
Oh, yes.
I would go to my grandfather's house,
Little Ken films?
and he would show these. So, Phantom of the Opera has always been my favorite, because that was the one I asked for the most. But
Sure.
among the other ones was the little 50-foot werewolf.
Yeah.
The werewolf is what it's called. So that was the first one that I'd seen. But the first full length was Werewolf of London, which is still my
I
favorite.
love Werewolf of London.
And I like the way it's made, everything about it. I think it's a really, the design of the werewolf I've always liked.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was more man than
It
wolf.
was wicked. It was one of the things. I'm one of those guys that doesn't really care for when it gets beyond a person. I always like the physical makeup. Oliver Reed, you can still see it's Oliver Reed under the makeup.
Right.
I'm going to throw one out there, and then everybody's going to charge the stage and beat me to death, and I'm going to look like Peter Cushing at the end of Revenge of Frankenstein. But I love Wolf. I like the movie Wolf.
I like Wolf.
Wolf's a very good
I
film.
think it's a pretty good film.
Yeah.
It's a thing on, a guy still being a guy, but still being a good guy, but having everybody walk all over him. But that Rick Baker makeup, especially when Jack Nicholson's running through the woods killing deer and stuff.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson's how much makeup, how much werewolf makeup you gotta put on. But it harkens back to Curse of the Werewolf, where Oliver Reed is so ferocious. I mean, when you look at Oliver Reed, you see a publicity photograph of him, you go, boy, I don't think I really want to hang out with this guy. You got to be Keith Moon to hang out with Ollie, but he was so ferocious. Unlike Chaney, I still felt sympathy for him, but you could even see that he was a guy ready to kind of snap.
Yeah.
Ready to break. And by the time he finally, there's scenes with him starting to change and all that. And when he finally does turn into the monster, he's a brute. He's just a big old blonde brute. And I think that's Hammer's best makeup. There's a lot of makeups they did that kind of failed, like that Evil of Frankenstein and all that.
That's hard. Oh, yeah.
And Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. I know people who go, that's one of the greatest makeups of all time. It's like, you think of the big husky-looking thing with the cranial attachment, and then the little artist hands, the little Clay Sayer hands, sort of just big old giant monster. But he can play the piano.
That's right.
I kidded.
It's a great performance by
There's
Dave
only
Prowse,
one way
who
to
never
get your
gets-
hands bigger. And
Maddox. It's a great performance by Dave Prowse, who never gets credit for the kind of work that
No,
he
he
did.
didn't.
No, he doesn't.
But the monster looked terrible.
No, it really doesn't.
Well,
It's really fun, but
Yes, what do you want, son?
I met Dave Prowse one time, and he said Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell was the favorite movie he ever did.
Good, I'm glad.
What
What do you want me to do about it? I love the film. I think it's a great
Oh, no, it's
film.
a good film.
It was very good after Horror of Frankenstein, which also had Dave Prowse's. First time I was like flipping through a Famous Monsters.
I think that's a far worse makeup.
Yeah.
Really, I think they're kind of neck and neck for it. It's like it's like the old Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau tells a story. He goes, "You're in a barrel of shit up to your neck, and some guy walks by with a bucket of feces and throws it at your face. Do you duck?" That's what those two makeups are. You know what I mean? It's like one is.
But like I like the look of it. It doesn't make any sense within the context of the movie. But
Our
then,
conversation has gone to shit, so we can change the subject now.
but the same thing could be said. You know, I like Werewolf of London and Curse of the Werewolf because the makeup design is rough.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. How is Cheney Jr. groomed every time? You know, that was always it. Even as a kid, I
His
didn't
best
like the
werewolf makeup was
design.
actually the Abbott and Costello makeup. Wasn't it you that said it to me the other night? I mean, it was
Yeah,
like
actually, yeah, that's-
the Abbott and Costello
good.
makeup is actually better than the one in the
That's
original
the
film.
Westmores had taken over from Jack Pierce at that point.
Mhm.
Oh, it wasn't.
But it has a shaggier look to
Yeah.
it. You know,
Yeah.
that's what I like.
I want to ask you something, Clay, because and again, not to
So you can
to argue, but I don't do that. But
Okay.
no, I'm curious. The one thing that I saw Werewolf of London. So it was like the third werewolf movie I saw. Saw the werewolf, then the Wolfman, and then Werewolf of London. So the first two, in the werewolf and the Wolfman, the werewolf is very sympathetic. I mean, obviously the werewolf was.
Yeah, Glendon's
Because-
not sympathetic.
Yeah,
Not
you know,
really, he's sort of
But
sneaky.
that's the thing I was gonna. It took me many years to really appreciate Werewolf of London because of that. Because I really had such a difficult time warming up to that character because he's really a jackass.
Yeah,
I mean, he really is. I mean, it's sort of like.
About his
So the first few times I saw that as a kid, it was sort of like, I don't care if you're a damn werewolf or not, you burn, man. You know. But then I sort of got a little more laid back on it. But did that ever bother you that he was just not a likable character?
No.
I don't think
Any more than I love the Frederick March Jekyll and Hyde. And
Okay.
that's a totally despicable
Yeah.
character.
Because we,
Yeah, let's see that.
well, I find a lot of similarities between that trope of the transformative man, and I think Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde certainly fits the bill.
Absolutely.
And that movie, that was our first Academy Award for an
Best
actor,
actor.
a male in a lead role for Best Actor
Yeah.
for a horror
For a
film.
horror-
It was two
Which
people.
did
Two
not-
people won the role that year, and I don't know who won Best
Well,
Actor.
Nobody-
Nobody,
Perry.
nobody cares.
Rosemary.
Yeah, nobody cares about that. Well,
But
it's
it-
okay.
Okay, Dan, let's shut me down. Sorry.
Yeah, it didn't happen again until.
No.
Till
about
Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs, yeah.
But see, even in Wolf, you have Nicholson's character is somewhat sympathetic.
Yeah.
But James Spader is like
Oh,
totally.
yeah.
I like the power.
Yeah, he's great.
I like the
Yeah.
power of the
true.
wolf.
It's
That's
It's a choice. It's a choice.
Yeah. So.
Well, some, and then there's other Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde movies where he's already kind of a scum.
Yeah, so,
So what difference is it like Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde? I mean, he's out there knifing women and taking their organs so he can get the sex gland or whatever it is to change over or whatever. And then when he becomes Sister Hyde, it's like, I mean, I love the movie, but it's like he was already, scum. So it isn't like Sister Hyde. It's like his evil side.
Well, that's what's so brilliant about American Werewolf in London, though, is he's the ultimate sympathetic.
Yeah, he's a,
Yeah.
he's
Oh,
a
maybe not.
Jim Knott is an amazing actor, an amazing guy. And
Sure.
He went through hell in that movie, but
Yeah.
his performance is so good, and the whole conceit of having his conscience be
yeah.
his
it's
friend
great.
who continues to deteriorate throughout the entire movie.
Right.
It's really
That's the
good.
most brilliant part of the whole movie.
Yeah. Really.
It was, you've got to ease off on the intensity a little bit, the comic relief.
Mhm.
Whoever
But he has
conceived
to.
that.
He has to face all his crimes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
progresses,
yeah,
too.
that's right.
That's something you never really see in the
I do
others.
have to mention one of my favorite scenes in that movie, which actually is very brief, is when the nurse is attending to her various
Oh.
kids. The kid that's like, no,
Oh yeah.
Shane and I will still do that to each other.
To me, the say, I don't know what, anytime I see anything like I'm watching Downton Abbey, the Queen is a man. So short and sweet, you know.
You mean it's not, I like it bad, so my balloon.
The werewolf movie that gets slighted the most, though, I think unfairly, is Joe Johnston's remake of The Wolfman.
I agree.
If you watch the director's cut of that
I watched
movie,
it,
it's
yeah.
a brilliant
I
film.
actually love that remake. And in fact, the scene in the asylum,
Yeah.
when they're proving
Yes.
that it's all in his mind, and he's got his back to him, and you never turn your back to anyone who's a suspected werewolf. I mean, this guy did not know anything
Or
about
lock
monster
yourself
movies.
in a cell.
And while everyone's going, and I love that. I mean, the first time I saw that scene, that the claustrophobic effect that it has on you, was like, yeah, what if I was in there?
It's
This
actually a
guy's-
remake of The Wolfman and American Werewolf in London.
Yeah,
Because it's
pretty
got
much
both
is, yeah.
stories
It
jammed
does, it
together,
does.
and that's why they
Yeah.
go at it again. What makes me sad in that movie is the photographs I saw of scenes that were shot, that were cut. The werewolf goes in the middle of a masquerade ball, and everybody's pinned against the wall of this giant amphitheater-looking sort of thing, and there's a woman on the ground right below him. She's screaming, and he's just going, ah, like that to her, and it's like, I went to the theater waiting for that moment, and it didn't happen. But
Oh, man.
yeah,
The
it
only
looked
problem
like-
I had with the movie was by making the father the werewolf, you lose that ultimate act at the end. And that's what's so
Yeah.
great about the original werewolf.
The
is
dad
that
has to kill
the
his kid.
father has to
The
kill.
father has
Yeah.
to kill his son.
And
Well, Anthony Hopkins was a nice anyway. He's like Glendon in American Werewolf
I
in
know,
London,
right.
which is supposed what he's supposed
but
to
when
be.
when you
Like him.
lose that, you know,
But that's, I mean, they
you lose the
almost,
heart of the movie. The movie has no heart.
he
to
took
it.
some story aspects from a couple of them, because I really felt like
Sure.
the father thing was in a sense an homage to Werewolf of London.
That's what I'm saying.
You know,
That's what
yeah.
I'm saying. It's
But I'm saying, so that didn't bother me too much, and you just let the girlfriend kill him.
The only thing I can say about the film is every time I
But
watch
it
it, and I
just
show it
doesn't
to other
carry
people,
any
is that
weight.
people forget it.
Yeah.
I think.
There's something missing from the film. It isn't that the movie's bad. I watch it. I like watching it. But you don't remember. When I saw American Werewolf in London, I was back like the next day
Yeah.
Oh,
to see
God.
it again. You know, Curse of the Werewolf, all these other kind of films. But you just forget it. It just kind of fades out after you've done watching it. It's like, you know, I don't know.
I
It's
think
not a,
that's
it's
the heart.
kind of a critique, but I don't know what to say about it.
They
It's
don't
got
have
all
a
this
heart
stuff.
about it.
Yeah, yeah, but I do love that scene that you're talking about in the insane asylum. That
Yes.
was an amazing. Yeah,
And I think that may be why-
The first attack
Yeah.
at the gypsy camp is really
Yeah, but I'm thinking
James was
that
watching that
the
in
scene
the
you
house a
were-
couple of weeks. He hadn't seen it, and that guy goes by and like, what's that guy's arm ripped off
Yeah.
or something like that.
But I think the scene you're talking about from the poster,
Yeah,
one of the reasons it might have been cut was because it would be almost repetitive from the scene in the asylum.
Yeah.
Which one was more intense?
I just think to me that looked
sacrifice.
like the big expensive shot in the film.
Yeah, and it might have been.
Because he was running along the buildings, and I think probably what happened is he crashed through the skylight
Yeah,
or something.
but I mean,
And I was
you
like,
know,
give it to us for a minute.
It
I
just,
mean-
they may have said, we can have one or the other, but not, you know, when,
Right.
a lot of these decisions are made, you know, in the editing room.
Yeah. This isn't a
And
Peter
sometimes,
Jackson
you know, when you
film.
read some of the scenes that get cut from some of these incredible
With
movies.
Anthony Hopkins leaving through the air with werewolf makeup on, it's like,
The bungee werewolf.
the heavy werewolf. Well, that was what happened at the end of in the fight in Wolf, and I actually liked it because it looked handmade.
Yeah.
They're leaping through the air on wires and
Yeah.
stuff, and all that, you know. But yeah, I don't know. Something about that one just sort of fades out into the background for a lot of people.
Interesting. And I'm always fascinated with how these different films impact people differently. How many of you here remember the very first monster movie you ever saw? Probably about every hand going up.
Well, let's just go down. Let's just go like just name the film.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's just do it real fast.
Jaws.
King Kong.
Good man.
Probably King Kong.
Frankenstein's out.
Maybe Jaws.
Never mind.
I can't remember the name of it.
I was Teenage Werewolf.
Oh, good.
There you go. Good.
That's Frankenstein.
Alligator.
Wait your turn.
Wait your turn. Screaming Skull.
Oh, Screaming Skull.
All right, anybody, you did yours. You, Dracula, sure. Huh?
Mummy's Hand.
You.
Black Scorpion.
My
Oh,
first
that's-
horror
that's his
film.
First horror film, yeah.
Yep. Panama City, walking across, probably was still wearing a diaper. That was about 3 weeks ago. And walking across and saw that scorpion underground and the kids running from it. Freaked the hell out of me. And that and the Tingler.
Godzilla 85. Godzilla, 1985.
Okay.
Nice.
Mummy.
Beasts from 20,000 Family.
Good.
Good choice.
Anybody else? They're all just sort of talking amongst themselves. Okay. Alligator, thanks. All three of you saw Alligator together?
I couldn't sit down because that booster shot.
He was a little kid, he was all sick and had to go to the bathroom every 5 minutes. And,
Okay, go ahead.
all right, well, it's either one of two. I was like 4. It was either like Spooks Run Wild with a ghosty,
Okay.
or Blood on Satan's Claw.
Jesus. Was it a double bill?
That's sort of a wide range.
Fit together.
What's wrong with it?
Yeah, it messed me up.
That explains so much.
Yeah, really, everything just, we should turn this into the biography of Neil.
My mom swears she didn't let me watch it. I'm like, yes, you did. You know?
I didn't see that, I didn't see Blood on Satan's Claw until about 7 years ago, and I'm like, wow. That and Living Dead at Manchester Morgue. I couldn't believe that when I saw it.
Yeah.
It's like, holy crap.
I gotta say something. When you mentioned that, we were talking on a double bill.
Yeah.
Just finished doing a show on the Leech Woman, which I hadn't seen in years. I'd forgotten all about it.
Sounds awful.
It was rushed. It was a rushed film, and anyone that's seen it knows that it has that feel about it that they really cut to the chase very quickly. There's a lot of story holes and all of that. And I always wondered why it felt so rushed. So when I did some research in it, I didn't realize that Universal International needed a second film to pair up with a big film that they were going to be distributing from Great Britain. It was a little Hammer film called Brides of Durango. So when you talk about a bad pairing, if you can imagine the Leech Woman opening for Brides of Durango.
Oh, really? Wow.
Somehow just, you wonder how many people didn't even make it to Brides of Dracula because they had to suffer through Leech Woman.
That's a crime. That's a crime.
That's one of the elements of this business, of the old monster movie business that unfortunately, some crazy stuff going on.
Well, he mentioned, who was it that mentioned teenage?
Oh, Teenage Werewolf, yeah, we gotta mention that.
Yeah.
That's
That's a
one of the
real
most
early one,
classic
too.
werewolf films ever made.
Then wasn't, and then what was his was Injections or what, one of the two?
No, it was Hypnosis.
Hypnosis.
He was doing
How to make a
Not one of those,
But again, you got-
how to make a monster.
you got one of the most unheralded character actors in history, Whit Bissell, who was
He's great.
an incredible actor.
Bissell.
He was in all kinds of great things, including.
I saw it the
and all
same
that.
year.
But then you got Michael Landon in one of his first roles, and what was regression therapy? Basically, he was trying to send him back. Of course, he was doing it. Michael Landon was the ultimate juvenile delinquent. He was the troubled
But
guy.
he did do a good job
He had
as a
anger
kid.
issues.
Yeah.
No, but he did, and.
Yeah.
And again, it has one of the best scenes in any AIP picture with the gyms. I knew I didn't even have to tell you because when she's upside down and he's coming at her upside. Oh my
It
God!
gave us one of the greatest
Free
science theater
meal.
ones.
Metal rings
Yeah.
inside.
If only they had milk.
Yeah. And of course, the legendary story from AIP with Nicholson and Arkoff were getting together. I think it was Nicholson when they brought it in and said we wanted to do this film called I Was a Teenage Werewolf. He said that's $100,000 picture with $1 million title.
Yeah.
Do it, and he was right.
My brother, my
Huge hit.
Teenage Frankenstein was coming on like about a week or two after
Another
Teenage Werewolf. Now, my brother had looked at the famous monsters and seen that old scarred up mess of a head, car wreck of a head. And I said, hey, Teenage Frankenstein's coming on. He goes, I ain't watching it. This is my older brother, so I'm like, hey, what? You're 6 years older than me. I'm willing to stay up and watch this. So he wouldn't do it. So I said, Dad, will you stay up with me? This is like 1969. He goes, yeah, I'll do it. Movie comes on. TV set's here. Living room's here. Kitchen's here. Going up the stairs, there's a circle in this part of the house so you can get to the stairs to go up. I'm watching the film. Whit Bizzle's a complete bastard in this movie. He's
Absolutely.
definitely channeling Peter Cushing from their Frankenstein. And he's like chopping off arms and throwing them into the alligator pit. His wife starts smarting off to it. He kills her in the alligator pit.
Speaking of which,
They-
how
they-
many
they
LA
take
houses
the-
have an alligator pit?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, yeah, and then the guy's on the table, and he comes up off the table and watches. My dad's like, yeah, he's enjoying it and all that kind of stuff. It goes to commercial, and he goes, I'll be back in a minute. And so I'm there watching. My brother's upstairs asleep. He's sawing wood. Dad goes around, gets in the kitchen, acts like he's doing something, then goes around, goes to the stairs, and he just starts running as fast as he can. I see him jump out of the chair, go past him, run up to the top of the stairs, open the door. My mom goes, get back down there with your son and finish that film with him. I go into the bedroom. And the dad goes, come on, I'll finish. I go, no, wait. I wake my brother up. I tell him what I've seen. I instantly fall asleep. He stays up till the crack of dawn, looked about all the stuff, had chopped the woman's arm off, threw it in the pit, and he said he never got to sleep that night staring at the ceiling. He was so terrified.
Did anybody shout when they first saw it for the first time and scream, that's Lois Lane in the movie? One of the few films I remember Phyllis Coates was ever in other than Adventures of Superman. So.
Yeah, it was the guy from Land of the Giants. The star of Land of the Giants was the Frankenstein.
Gary
Yep.
Yep.
I met him
Gary
last year.
Conway, yeah.
Yeah. But,
And we had another fellow that was one of your favorite movies, the professor from the Slime People, who was the assistant to what that's
The slime people.
I saw pictures from that film in the magazine, so that actually looks pretty good. Then I watched it. If you ever listen to any episode of the show, there's like one or two of them. There's Frankenstein's daughter and that one. If any one of them, if those are the two that we really just tear into.
Yeah.
I mean, we tear into Creeping Terror with actual hate.
Oh, no,
we actually
sure.
hate that film. Especially if you know the history of the film and the background behind the film, you actually hate the film. But these two are just kind of tearing into Slime People. Holy crap.
Mark had never seen the Slime People before I suggested we do it for a show.
I'd never seen it, which is...
So and this is like, we did this like maybe 3 months ago.
Yeah.
It hasn't been long.
So go tell them where they can go and download it.
So, I don't know, yeah, you can find it.
It's
on-
your show. Tell them where to go.
Find it on iTunes or
Monster.
whatever.
Yeah, and it's very easy to find because it's a cult, and I call it a guilty pleasure, and I have many of them where I don't know why I watch it over and over again. It's awful, it's horrible. Robert Hutton was pissed off that he wasn't getting roles that he wanted in Hollywood, so he saved up the money, wrote himself a starring role, produced it, directed it, starred in it, and it shows. It's really pretty awful. Yeah, and so Mark's take on the Slime People when we open that podcast is worth the price of it.
Yeah. I mean, when you get one of those you're halfway through a film and you get one of those deep-seated David Jansen headaches. Wrinkles and everything, and it's like, that's so excessive. You know?
You hit rock bottom.
Speaking of David Jansen, Moon of the Wolf.
Yeah.
I'm talking to you.
What's your take on, like, if you will, the popularization of the werewolf character with stuff like Buffy or those Twilight movies that more people are aware of it, but more aware
Hold
of
me
it, it's so
back.
cheesy.
Hold me back.
We won't talk about that.
It's sort of one of those.
No, but I will say, hold on, I do like in Trick or Treat, the one part of the anthology
I
where,
can handle Trick or Treat.
yeah, I love that part where the.
My attitude on Twilight, the whole series, is Beverly Hills 90210 with thanks. Sorry, I just can't,
Linda put the film on as
Just
a
can't.
joke. She didn't tell me what it was. I didn't get to see the opening credits. And I'm there, and there's like all these kind of slightly grayed out kids in the parking lot talking amongst themselves in the high school, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I actually liked the TV show True Blood. I
like True Blood.
I enjoyed True Blood,
Absolutely.
but it's a hard R. I mean, it's a hard R-rated show. But there's some of the too many where the werewolves are sexy, the vampires are sexy, and we gotta have sex, and we had some weird hybrid kid. Now we gotta put it down. And
What we do in the shadows. Does anybody like what we do in the shadows? Yeah.
Penny Dreadful, Penny Dreadful. Thank you for
Penny
Dreadful is
Penny Dreadful is great.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need more shows like
Especially that last episode where there was two of them in there.
They killed it, right? They're not
They
doing
killed it.
No.
Wait, it's coming back.
It's called Penny Dreadful, like 1930 or something.
Yeah,
It's
Are
really-
right.
it's
they
in the-
any of the same actors that are going to do that?
Well, they keep it real quiet.
Only Frankenstein's monster.
I think he's the only one
Well,
that
he's
returns.
great.
Yeah.
That's
He
fine.
was really good.
He's
Oh,
great.
God, that was good.
He's
I was
so good.
very,
I was
very
like
pleased with it.
super impressed.
Yeah, it was like an expensive Hammer film.
Yeah.
Every
But the way
episode.
they tied in all the classic monsters.
They
was
did, and I really,
brilliant.
I liked still the Dorian Gray.
Yep.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
great.
everything.
Everything was good.
But the thing about that show is they built the werewolf thing slowly with his character. They
Sure.
built it
Yes.
slowly,
Yeah.
until finally he just decimated this bar. And they showed the aftermath, and it was just this bar covered in blood everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic.
And that's-
the way-
and that's
I
what-
still hadn't told you he was the werewolf, although everybody already
Oh,
figured it
yeah.
out.
That's
Right.
where we need to get back to with Monsterama. We were mentioning Twilight and some of that, and I had nothing against, like, and I'm gonna get into vampires just real briefly here, Byron-esque type approaches to vampire stories, but when it started becoming romance novels, and the vampires were some guy, anybody remember Forever Night? That ghastly TV series? I said, what a joke. I mean, it's like, you got people falling in love with vampires, people falling in love with werewolves, and stuff, and it's like, stop. These are freaking monsters.
To me,
They need
it's
to
like
be monsters. They
monsters
kill
get love
people.
too.
They eat people.
They need a stake in the
But
heart.
they need to be monsters, and it's like,
But
please
Dracula was a
don't
love
do
story.
that to those of us who love these
To
things.
me, a
Just
vampire-
stop it.
Dracula is not a love
It
story.
is a love story.
It is not.
No,
The Mummy is a love story.
no, Dracula's a power story, not a love
It's a
story.
love story.
Janos
How
Scorsese. That's all I got to say.
Janos Scorsese?
Janos Scorsese, that's a vampire.
That's the vampire.
Nosferatu's a vampire.
Salem's
Yeah.
Lot. Those are
Salem's
vampires.
Lot. Well, Nosferatu part 2 or
Yeah.
3 or whatever.
Well,
I've been falling off stuff.
I'm a little kid saying this to a big old vampire. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna kill you.
The new Penny Dreadful is going to be called City of Angels because it's going to take place in LA.
Right.
Ah, okay.
What? No way.
Yeah.
Is that
yeah, it's gonna have a Hispanic.
Will any of the homes have like an alligator pit? We did a
We can
whole,
only hope.
we did a
That
whole,
Frankenstein's daughter, man.
I
Where
was
the
gonna
hell,
say,
where
that's
the
it.
hell did that house come from?
Yeah.
It's like
We did a
a
whole
regular
show on
suburban
this
house,
about-
probably 1,500 square feet, and then all of a sudden you go inside, there's
it's
like
like
mansions, there's cobwebs, there's, laboratories and
Well, that's
everything
like
else.
Werewolf of Washington. You're watching it, and it's just, it's supposed to be a satire and everything. But then all of a sudden, there's a scene in the White House where they go into the boiler room of the White House, and there's a little person, mad scientist, who's got all these bodies everywhere. And he just goes up and starts talking to the werewolf, and the werewolf's like, they're like hanging out, hey man,
Well, that actually goes on.
He's still a better president than the current one.
But no, we did a whole show, basically, it might have been, I guess, beyond Frankenstein's daughter, about why do these 50 shows of monster movies that were shot in LA have homes like that? It's like, this is not the Brady Bunch we're talking about.
Well,
This
why
is
do
most
they
of-
start with
I mean,
normal
even the
suburban interiors and then go to,
Yeah, it's
then all of a sudden the brickwork starts getting worse and worse, and all of a sudden there's these giant stones.
even some of the great core
Yeah.
of the
Right, right,
the
beautiful house. If
VIP
you go
films.
inside, it looks like it was,
Yeah.
Victorian.
Every house in those had a vat of acid. It just came standard. It was in the right house real estate.
The architecture
I guess
that
that was.
was required.
I felt sort of, I asked my dad, I said, why don't we have a vat of acid?
I was always expecting
I was
that.
hoping not
Shut
to
your mouth and we will.
That's right.
I wouldn't go turn until you turned 18, but yeah.
Alright, let's get serious.
I wanted a drawbridge animate. That was what I would
A drawbridge in a boat would
Yeah.
be cool.
have. Yes.
Some Uber
With
driver,
alligators.
Uber driver trying to pull up.
There is one in LA. Fred Olen Ray's old house, the director Fred Olen
Yeah.
Ray, his old house has a drawbridge in it.
Wow.
They used it for tons of TV series and stuff too, but he built a house with a drawbridge in it.
What was that Blood of Dracula I watched, the Al Adamson one? That wasn't that one, was
I don't know, maybe.
Boy, that was a stinker.
Yeah.
That
Well,
was a
and you
stinker.
think with Al Adamson's name.
Yeah, what do you, that's all you need
That's
to
sort of a market
know.
quality. That makes sense. Wood.
I mean, Al Adamson's life is so bad that
Well, you know,
his own life is worse than his horror movies.
They released a documentary on it. His ending,
documentary.
his demise is actually more interesting than the films that he made.
Yeah.
How many people have seen Dracula versus Frankenstein with that real furry? Yeah, it's a masterpiece, isn't it?
I love that movie.
But you love it.
I have love for Zandor Gorkov.
He said if Anthony gets Zandor next year,
You know who
he'll-
Zandor Borkov is?
Well, you told me he was a real estate.
He's a real guy. He was like Michael
Bill Shelley or something
He
like
was,
that.
yeah, he's a real estate agent in LA. Still is. He still sells homes in LA. And he gave Al
He still
Adamson
has
like
that
$50,000. It's like, hey, you can be Dracula, sure. That is the only movie.
I mean, when you see a movie like that, and some of those films that you get stuck with, I will not say the name of this film because somebody will love this movie maker.
Say it.
Well, you gotta say it.
Say
All right,
Where did-
Paul Naschy.
Oh, Paul
Yeah, I know.
Naschy, yeah.
But I'm trying to do this cover for this magazine with Paul Naschy, and I enjoy painting stuff from Paul Naschy films because visually they're good.
Yeah.
But I'm there working on it, and he starts to transform, and like that. And
Those
then
movies are
my
great.
girlfriend sticks her head in the room, and she goes, "Is there something? Who's throwing up on the movie?" and she sees the werewolf, you know. An aside, I have to then do the werewolf cover for a Paul Naschy book. I go outside and I put on the button down. I've got the weight of Paul Naschy, unfortunately, and I'm throwing my arms around. And all I do is I just get attacked by my dogs. They just keep attacking me. So now I can just be doing anything in the house. I'm actually going to do this because I'm going to send this to the Molina family, the Naschy family. Take the camera. I can just bring my hand up and just go like this, and the dogs just go. Like that, yeah. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
it. No.
That's actually quite appropriate. It's a werewolf topic, so.
Yeah,
that
it's
works.
totally great. I like their movies.
No, I'm saying,
Yeah.
well, let me put it this way. I don't like Paul Naschy movies, but I own about 30 of them.
They're
Purely
They're
research.
not,
Yeah, purely
they're not,
research.
Yeah, they're not great, but still, like, they're
They're
super
intriguing.
entertaining.
They're
And
intriguing.
they look great.
Sure.
Werewolves with the vampire woman, no, that's a
Yes.
fantasy.
Oh, no, that's a classic.
I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
The one that's
Frankenstein's
mostly
Bloody
voted
Terror
is
takes a
the,
little getting used to.
Forget the name.
the one where they go out to the thing and
Uh-huh.
it's got everything. It's got the
And he's got,
vampire, it's got
like-
the head cut off on the, and it's above the painting. And actually, that's on the cover for the magazine I did. And then there's a really great zombie scene in where they come back out, 3 or 4 of the people that got killed come back up out of the lake. What's the name of it? Tomb of the Blind Dead. I forget the name.
Oh, no, that's an excellent.
But that was the first one in that new Naschy Blu-ray release, and the
Are the
picture looks
zombies?
great. Huh?
Is it Are the Zombies?
No, it's not. It's not a word like zombie. It's I don't know. It's such an eclectic horror film that I think they threw everything at it. They gave it some generic name. He'll know.
He's kind of like.
You, what planet is that?
So this is the exciting thing about this panel. Not only do you hear us go on and on about monster movies, but we give you homework. So next year we want you to tell us what that movie is. We're going to test everything.
That drives me nuts.
What movie? What are you talking about?
The Paul Naschy movie. They're riding to this place for vacation. They get attacked. The guys that attack them. They hang the guy that was
All the
attacking
movies live
them.
together.
They get there to the castle. There's a vampire with his decapitated head in a box. And
Have you thought about being a writer?
Yeah.
have I thought about being a writer?
I'm just
For someone that does not like these movies, he has an awful lot of
I had ulterior motives. I'll tell you what, I get paid to do the covers, and I'll tell you,
I do
if
like
I
horror
find
movies
them,
for some efficiency.
you hire me. That's it. Horror rises from the tomb.
movie ever made. Yeah,
Horror rises. That's it. Horror rises from the tomb. I actually like that one.
But I do like, just as a filmmaker, I liked his efficiency of
I'm
making
surprised you
his
would say
movies.
that.
I appreciate the fact of a middle-aged werewolf.
Pot belly.
Well, he got all the sexy ladies too.
He did.
I remember being 17 years old.
So does
and we're
Keith
watching
Richards,
at the
but-
drive-in. The guy's got like some bad things on his back, so the lady lays the girl down, cuts a perfect square, lifts it off like it's a tissue, just, and then places it on his back to help the boils on his back, while she's screaming. Oh well. It's one of those things where those movies, who's the French writer, the guy that does all the lesbian vampire movies?
Oh, Roger Deakins.
Jean Rollin. whether I like the film, that particular film or not, there is so much nutrition in them to do paintings and artwork from. You can literally just.
I like your choice of words.
What?
Like a cereal box.
It is. And I will actually, I keep throwing this out there. Somebody said there's movies you can't do a good painting from. I'll do a cover for Creeping Terror. I'll do one that have people lined up around the block to do. Yeah, you pay me though.
I would for you.
Do one from Necromantic 2.
I'll do
Necromantic 2.
Jesus, Jorg's off the chain. He really is. So he snips a penis and the guy is screaming, and oh boy, there's a cover.
All right, we've got time for one question from the audience. Let's see how it is when we get together.
Yeah.
We started with
That'd be a good
the
question.
giant behemoth and ended up on this.
On peanuts.
Only we can pull
On
this.
penises.
Has anybody got a comment, question that you want to throw at us real quick?
Anything.
Well, you can't have this panel without saying Wolfman's got nards.
I was gonna
right?
say-
Wolfman's right on the Monster Squad.
Monster Squad is-
Oh, yeah.
Poor Fred Decker's career was kind of over after that.
Pretty much.
He worked on Star Trek for a while.
Yeah, but I mean, his movie career,
movie career.
because it flopped. I mean, it was terrible.
Yeah,
It was a terrible.
it's a fun movie.
It's a great movie, but.
Sure.
Yes, it's built up quite a following.
Absolutely.
That great werewolf that's in Night Stalker.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, let's see. I was like, good. So
On the-
good.
on the
So
cruise,
good.
maybe.
The play has never been on Monster Attack.
This is on district two.
Ship, which is obviously in dock. You can tell it's just so dock.
Come on,
It's not even
there was
funny.
no love for Boy That Cried Werewolf. There was.
Yes, son. What
That
is
was
it?
awful.
What about Death Moon, that late 70s, 80s?
Bad Moon, yeah.
Yeah.
That
I saw
wasn't
it
too
when I was
bad. It
8
was
years
all right.
old. Hey, listen,
It was like a made for
that is the
TV.
only movie that I've ever seen that literally I crap my pants.
And on that note,
I was 8 years old when I had a nightmare. I woke up and it happened.
Everybody in the audience. No, don't turn around more, Tate. Look, everybody look straight ahead and then just smile out. Because I think I got an idea that there's going to probably be somebody pooping their pants in the back. You don't have to tell everybody everything.
Why there were wolves in Hawaii, though?
Jesus.
TMI. Okay.
Let's all admit, okay, he's got incontinence. What do you want me to do?
There's no way we can top that or wrap up from there. Folks, thank you for
Again, our conversation went to shit.
You know, Monster Attack releases new episodes every Monday at 5 p.m. on the Project Entertainment Network. So check us out sometime.